Hey, good morning, my friends. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you in your locale. Here we are. Today it is the 11th of May. I got the month right this week. It's the 11th of May, 2022 here in New Zealand. It is 9 a.m. It's Wednesday morning. Chat with Matt time. I'm here to talk about whatever you want to, whatever you want to talk about. With the intent to basically, stimulate some transformation, stimulate some growth, stimulate some evolution. That might mean that we apparently sort of come on and support you, and so that you feel a little bit more comfortable in yourself and feel a bit more confident in moving forward. Or it might mean that we challenge you a little, or a bit of both. But what I do want to point out is we're not here to tell you the truth. I know that's a funny statement, right? But I'm not intentionally lying to you, but I'm not here to lay down the law about how it is. Like, oh yeah, I'm a channel and I channel spirit, but we don't pertain to be the ultimate truth and to basically tell you what you should be thinking and what you should be knowing and what's important for you to know. None of this is important for you to know. Whatever we talk about basically is intended to stimulate an inquiry that helps you find your own wisdom and find a more empowered relationship with this thing that's called self, yourself, not myself, but yourself, right? So to get there, we have to get out of the status quo, which we've all been running, and we all continue to, and we all will continue to run to some extent in programs that have been, we've been indoctrinated with, delivered to by various mechanisms. Not all of them, not even probably most of them malicious in intent, right? This indoctrination is not a huge conspiracy. A lot of it is just the natural way that society has evolved through a dark period, right? It has been a dark period, just like coming through winter. That's normal and natural. The earth goes through it every cycle, every 25,000 years or so. And again, don't cling to 25,000 years because I'm not 100% sure that that's right. That's just my feeling on it. I've read a bit about that. But do I have any proof that it is 25,000 years, etc.? No, of course I don't. But I'm not really liking the lighting again, just for a change. It was looking okay when I started. So much crap on my desk, I can't even... I'll live with that. Yeah, here we are. And hello, everyone. I saw Kelly said hello. Hi, Jill. And hi, Audra. Hello, welcome. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to write them in. But I am going to start with what Jen Burns wrote in on the notification, which is this. I'll read what she said basically because it's good, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. I don't think it's really a specific question so much, but anyway, here we go. So Jen wrote, I'm dancing with focus and flow, creating space in my life for whatever wants to naturally arise, and also choosing to redirect my attention back to my top 3 priorities. In the past, I've been overly structured in an attempt to, quote unquote, get it right and direct all of my attention to my 3 goals, intentions. I notice there is some anxiety now when I lean more into flow, creating space for whatever to happen, because it also creates space for distraction. I'm going to put inverted commas around distraction because it's an interesting term. I use it a lot too. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Old patterns of allowing my attention to be directed not by intuition, but by other forces. With that being said, I'm realizing that part of the structure, or perhaps ritual is a better word here, is to get in touch with my intuition and find a dance between structure and flow. I don't have a specific question here. It's more of a general inquiry, as it seems like many people are polarized to one end or another. At least that's my story. Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say, Jen. I think a lot of people are polarized in general in our society. Our society has led us towards this very polar thinking of right versus wrong, good versus bad, correct versus incorrect. And a lot of people really cling to either the rightness of allowing flow or the rightness of having structure. And not so many people are more fluid with the dance between the two. Because in my opinion, if we have good structures in our life, it gives us the possibility or even the luxury of being able to flow more easily and more gracefully through life, right? Because if you have no structures at all, what tends to happen is, as you said, you get quite distracted and I don't really like the term distracted, because it sort of implies that there's a right thing that you should be focused on, and anything other than that is a distraction, a wrong thing, right? So we get distracted from the right thing towards the wrong thing. But that's not really what I mean when I say distracted. What I guess I should say we get more diffuse if we don't have a degree of structure, so that our attention, and it's not necessarily a wrong thing that our attention flits from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. It is a valid experience still to have on this planet. But if we do have a heart desire to achieve a goal, right? If we are really working towards an outcome, and again, we have to do this with it. Well, it's beneficial. We don't have to do anything. It's beneficial for us to work towards that goal with a degree of flexibility and acceptability around how that's going to happen, right? Because if we get too blinkered on goal, then we sort of we dismiss a whole heap of experiences that would be quite beneficial and valid for us to have. Hey, brother Glenn. So to find this dance between focus and flow, I think it's valid to recognize that the two can intermingle, and a degree of focus and a degree of structure or ritual, whatever term you want to use there, is beneficial in giving us a framework in which we can flow through, and we can allow ourselves to go on tangents without losing the whole picture of what we're attending to, right? So if we can go on a tangent still mindful that our intent is to achieve a certain big state of being, and under that big state of being there's probably some goals that we want to achieve as well, and so we're tangenting away from actually working towards the goal. Hey, Sister Jen Funt, different Jen, I'm answering Jen Burns' question right now. As we move away from working towards a specific goal, we can still be working under the intent that we are working towards the bigger intention, right? Because quite often we need to gain some skills, or we need to gain some experience before we can actually attain that goal. And so tangents are quite often the way that we foray into other opportunities to get what we really need in order to achieve the goal that we're working so hard towards. Sometimes that getting what we need is actually releasing some limitation in ourselves, and we have to have an experience, sometimes uncomfortable experience, that's going to yield that release. We're going to basically have it exposed to us so that we can make a good choice about whether we're going to allow ourselves to maintain that mentality or that emotional entanglement or whatever, or whether we're going to see it, recognize it, accept it, breathe, relax through it, so that we can become more free of it, and thus be more able to achieve a goal we become passionate about, that all sits under a broader umbrella of achieving the state of purpose or empowered freedom or self-love, or whatever we're really working towards, right? Generally our goals, our external goals, are a representation of what we think it would look like to have the internal state of being that we're really desirous of in a heart-based, soul-based way. So hopefully that helps with allowing yourself to not throw babies out with bathwater. It's not that we need to honor very rigidly the structures and the three main goals, or the intentions and the values that we find important to us, but we're passionate about, that meaningful for us in order to flow. It's not one or the other. I think we all have room to bring more flow into our lives, and I think we all probably have room to empower or modify the way we work with structures in our life, because many of us get rigid around structures that we believe are important, and many of us allow flow to take us well sort of down the path without applying any sort of structure to how we're flowing, any sort of mindfulness or awareness to the fact that we're even flowing. A lot of the times we're just away with it, or a lot of the times we're indulging in very disempowered distraction techniques, right? Coping mechanisms, because moving towards the goal was getting too painful, and we felt like we might be failing, or we felt we weren't capable, and so we quote unquote flow into distraction in order to cope with that pain. And it's just a matter of really allowing ourselves to bring more awareness around that, so that we have the opportunity to make conscious choice. Hey, I think that was Brad and Colleen. Welcome. Seeing people pop on with little faces and hearts and thumbs up. So yeah, it is definitely a very, very valid inquiry, is to look at how each of us are focusing on structure and ritual, and how we are allowing flow into our life, and not to get too caught up in how it's supposed to be, but really ask the questions: what would benefit me? What would be most beneficial for me at this time, right? And understand that that's an ongoing inquiry, because it's a dynamic thing. Sometimes in our lives, it would serve us to bring more structure in, and to get a bit more rigid, right? A bit less loose. And other times it's beneficial for us to really let go of some structure that we're holding onto too tightly and creating tension and stress in our being, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically. So there's times and places where the slider can be slid in either direction, as if it's a linear thing, which it's not. There's not focus on one end and flow on the other, and a slider between the two, really. But in some ways we can look at it that way, and it's not terrible to think of it like that. But so sometimes there's opportunity to flow more and let go of some of the structure, but to still maintain an awareness of what's important to us, what's our integrity and our values, and what's our overall big outcomes, and even what are our 3 goals and our intentions, and how might flowing in this direction actually be serving us to attain that, even though it doesn't look like there's a direct link. It's always valid to be mindful of what our bigger intentions are, because if we're mindful of that while we're flowing off in what seems like a bit of a tangent, we can potentially have the aha, I see how this fits in, or I see how this pattern that I'm flowing with right now is actually limiting or beneficial for me achieving one of the goals that I'm really intentional on achieving, right? We can knit the two together, and we can feel more integral in ourselves if we have that level of awareness. If we don't have awareness, then we don't have choice, and then we're sort of at the whim of various sources of impulse, whether that be our emotional desires and aversions, or mental stories that are creating aversions and desire, or whether it be external forces, what other people want us to do, what society is programming us with, what the advertising campaigns are edging us towards or pushing us towards, etc., right? If we don't have awareness and we throw ourselves loose to the currents, then we will end up someplace that was not intentional, right? We will just drift, supposedly in flow state. But the point is, it's not an absolute terrible thing to have happen, right? It's not that you've just wasted your life and then you're a complete failure. If you move through that state with, again, a degree of awareness that this is what's happening to me, then you're still, gaining valid wisdom and having potentially beautiful experiences with all sorts of people who pop up in your life. And none of that is quote unquote wrong. That's all can be very evolutionary for us, right? It just depends on how strong the drive is inside of us to achieve certain goals. And again, it's important for us to recognize what is driving the intent to achieve those goals. Is it from lack, that, I don't feel good enough unless I achieve this stuff? Or is it a real soul desire to express ourselves passionately and purposefully in something that feels very important, right? So, digging into the deeper why of what's behind what we think we should be focusing on, what our goals, is also valid, because sometimes our goals are very much entangled in a coping mechanism to dysfunction that we're carrying still, and we're basically working from a fear basis, which is, again, not wrong, right? Because it's still a valid experience to have, but potentially not really what you are choosing, because you haven't brought enough consciousness to what's behind your choice. Okay, so hopefully that's helped, Jen. Let's read what Jill has. I don't know if it's a tangent or whether it's a reinforcement yet, because I can't read without actually reading it. I can see all the words. I'd love to be able to talk and just look at something and be able to read it, but Matt can't do that, so interesting. Since last week, I've driven hundreds of miles with 2 trips to Devon and back within 4 days. Crazy, exhausting behaviour, but... Whoo, I'm going to have to read that down here, because reading that length of stuff on the screen is... Just need to refresh my page so I get us up here. Right, there I am live. Okay, let's see more. Okay. Since last week, I've driven hundreds of miles with 2 trips to Devon and back within 4 days. Crazy, exhausting behaviour, but it seems only way to secure a place to live for when my house sale goes through. The two 24-carat returning challenges to me of security and control, or lack of both, were driving me, I guess. The idea of living nomadic in an interim time presented itself, and I accepted I could do it. The estate agent proved to be the logical foil for my flight of fancy, but I felt a good release by having faced a homeless time and accepted it. The universe popped up in a house in Devon, very similar to the one in Cornwall, but with added ability to view the sea from a balcony, with the wild woolly trees filled the garden, but sadly no stream. I've been feeling like my Piscean fish self, but flopping around on the lawn out of water. I dipped my feet into the chilly water of the Atlantic, and it weirdly grounded me. I don't think that's weird at all. I think that's very normal, Jill, that putting your feet in the ocean is a very grounding thing to do, a very awesome thing to do. And I've been, I haven't been doing so much of feet in the ocean, but I've actually set up a plunge pool. I basically got a small tank, water tank that we had lying around. Actually, it's more like a barrel, but it's a bit wider than a barrel, and filled it with cold water yesterday. And so out of the spa bath and into the cold plunge pool I went last night in the dark, doing a little bit of cold water therapy. But I'm also choosing to get my shoes off more often and ground on the earth. Maybe I will go to the beach and walk in the water. I used to do a lot of that, walking in the shallows. I haven't done that lately. Good idea. So awesome, Jill. I think it's awesome that you chose to drive 2 trips to Devon and back. And as long as you're bringing awareness to it. But I think it's good that we choose to make an investment in trying various options before we necessarily draw a conclusion that we're going to live nomadically or whatever. You have the option that you can, and you're inquiring into that, right? Feeling into that. And you also have the opportunity that you could find something between now and then, your house sale completing. So the point is to don't be too judgmental on whatever quote unquote crazy things you end up finding yourself inspired to do. I know it's easy to jump onto, oh, I'm acting from lack, or I'm acting from fear of lack of safety and security, but maybe you're not, right? And I think we all always sort of dance with this idea of we're not sure sometimes of what is actually inspiring us. An opportunity comes, it feels hopeful, right? There seems to be something there, and so we go and do it, right? Is it because it feels hopeful that we will avoid doing something that we're a bit scared of doing, like buying a house and therefore not being nomadic? Or is it because this could actually be the place of your dreams? It's very, very hard to tell, and I don't think we absolutely have to all of the time. We have an impulse to do something, and if it feels okay to go ahead, then go ahead and do it. I encourage people not to get too caught up in trying to get it right. Is this a loving thing to do, or is this a fearful thing to do? Sometimes it's hard to tell if we are being inspired by love or fear. If it's obvious, then we can make good choices around that. If it's not obvious, then we just go with it, right? We try it out, and either way, no harm is really done. No harm has really been done by you driving backwards and forwards to Devon. You might be feeling a bit exhausted, but that also might be the feeling of bringing your density to the surface, right? Which is valid as well. Exhaustion is not a bad state of being. The gurus used to use exhaustion all the time to help the disciple achieve breakthroughs, right? To achieve that level of surrender where they can really access the deeper levels of consciousness. There's many, many stories when the energy was more aligned with this sort of behavior of the monks or the sadhus or whatever, being deprived of sleep and spending a lot of their time in meditation or prayer or worship at various times to get them into a state where their ego could break down more easily. I personally know that when I'm exhausted, it can get quite messy, but it can also be very, very potent time of transformation, because we do get to the state of releasing stuff that we've been clinging to. So don't make it wrong about doing things that are a little bit extreme. You know, I like the saying, you know, we should have moderation in all things, including moderation. It's okay to be extreme sometimes. You know, it's beneficial to be extreme sometimes. It's part of life. We have opportunities here to be quite extreme. And so it's not wrong to do so. I know that the picture of balance and the Zen sort of state of being, of neutrality, is appealing because it feels quite peaceful. And we like that idea that, I could rest if I was like that. You know, I wouldn't have to worry if I was like that. So, yeah, I think it's good to know that you have options either way, and so be willing to, you know, be extreme, and don't overly judge yourself as right and wrong, doing all sorts of different things on a whim, if it feels appropriate. And then it's at the same time, be mindful whether you are being driven by a fear and a coping mechanism, or whether this is really an opportunity for you to step into a state of being that would be beneficial for you. Yeah, we bought a house. I don't know if I told you last week. No, I don't think we bought it last week. I only bought it on the weekend. So yeah, we've bought a house. It's actually 2 houses on the one block, which could be quite good for us. 2 2-bedroom houses, so for us and the kids. And it'll be sort of interim for us because, transitory for Marie and I, who are going to be travelling a lot more and potentially finding a block of land somewhere warmer. And then the kids can move in together in one of the places and rent the other one out, or they can live separately, or maybe one of the kids will move out. We just don't know. So this gives us opportunities that one of the places could be rented, or both of them could be rented. They're both very rentable properties. But anyway, one of the properties needs some work done to it. Bathroom, etc. But our big challenge now is getting building materials. Wall lining, plasterboard is in very, very short supply in New Zealand because they shut the factory down because of COVID, and then had troubles getting it started again. They had to do some maintenance, etc. after they'd shut it down. And so it was closed for several months, and there was a huge backlog in orders. And I was just looking in not secondhand, but people basically on selling jib now at basically 4 or 5 times the going retail rate on Trade Me over here, which is like eBay. So that's an interesting predicament. Not that that's terribly, terribly expensive for what we need, so I'll probably end up just buying some that way. But yeah, I was there with the plumber yesterday, and he's talking about the woes of various tradesmen and builders and stuff, and trying to get jobs done now with this shortage of various key elements in the process, which is all very, very interesting. So yes, and I'm currently having to dance with the banks, which I found very, triggering for me personally. Not that they're being hard or anything, but we're intending to get a bridging loan, so we'll settle on the place we're purchasing 6 weeks before we settle on the place that we're selling, because we've got such a long settlement here. And the idea was to go in and do the renovations before we move in to the new place. So that's where I'm at. It has been a challenging time for me, dealing with contracts and stuff, the purchase of that property, and then working with jumping through all the hoops that the bank wanted in order to get a bridging loan to cover us for that 6 weeks, and then working now with making plans for a new bathroom, ordering stuff and seeing what they can't get, and how I'm going to have to somehow negotiate through things that are not so simple. So plenty of challenges, I think, is what I'm saying, which was not really what I was wanting because I was struggling enough before this with various things going on in my life, internally mainly. So awesome, right? The universe has stepped up and given me the opportunities to really heighten what is, coming up to be released. So this is normal for us all. And it's not an indication that we're on the wrong path or we're going against what's really serving us when it gets really uncomfortable to move through what is presenting. And we're never sure. I felt really uneasy having to deal with the contracts for buying this place. And then went back to it after we'd bought it and thought, no, it's the right decision. It's fine. But at the time, because I was feeling uneasy at the what's the right word? At the resistance that was coming up internally of dealing with the authoritarian structures of filling in the paperwork and all of this stuff that feels so heavy and so out of alignment with me, to fill in paperwork and all of this jumping through hoops and solicitors wanting to, all of this stuff that doesn't feel loving, right? It feels very structured and very fear-based, right? The legalities of everything and the way that the money's controlled, all that doesn't feel good to me. So when I'm in that space having to get something done, I don't feel good. And then it's very easy for me to start wondering, am I not feeling good because I'm going in the wrong direction, or am I not going good because this is triggering deeper wounds within me, that I still hold against basically authoritarian structures that have persecuted me at other times, other lifetimes. So it's not easy. It's not easy to find real clarity on this resistance is coming from this area. It's not resistance telling me that I'm doing the wrong thing in stepping forward with the purchase, right? Which, purchasing, nearly $1 million worth of property is it's a big thing. It's a big thing. It's the numbers involved these days is here in New Zealand with property prices is staggering, right? We're talking about numbers that used to indicate that you were a very rich person when I was growing up, like a millionaire was a rich person. And now I'm dealing with, we sold our property for $1.5 million, $1.5 million. That's an incredible amount of money. But equally, to purchase another property, it's also an incredible amount of money. So these assets are there; they have these numbers associated to them, but it doesn't really come with the sensation of wealth like it used to. Right in the 70s, $1 million was a huge amount of money, and even the 80s, when I was starting to really appreciate money. $1 million was you've made it, you don't need to work. Today that's not the case. It's just a normal figure. And I know over in America, the property prices are much lower numbers in general. I know there are some very expensive properties, but we're not talking luxury housing here in New Zealand. This is stock standard housing, pretty much for those sort of prices. But that's just scales and economy and stuff, and currency and on all of that. So the point that I tell you that story is not to sort of, bore you with my life, but to help you recognize that challenges will be always. None of us move through these challenges, quote unquote, easily, but it's what's beneficial is for us to bring awareness to it, bring acceptance to it, and choose to relax as best we can going through those challenges so that we can be more aware to our intuitive nudges and to find a degree of confidence that if something's really not going well for us, that we will find a bigger nudge, and that it's normal to feel resistance to doing anything that's out of our comfort zone, and that's not for us to recoil from that, thinking, oh, this doesn't feel good, I don't want to do this. If we take that mentality, we won't do anything. That's the point. I'm just going to scroll down here. Jill wrote in, hey sister, Catherine. Is that a mental blank? Right. Jill wrote, the journey was okay and very calming. Friend joined me both trips. He brilliantly drew me out into relaxing, into just deciding what to do through feeling. I was following a sat nav and then repeatedly chose to go another route marked similar ETA. Was brilliant method as just arrived in time for an appointment and free parking in place. The town is Paganton. I can't read those sorts of words. And it seemed to have a gorilla as its logo with a giant statue of those beautiful primates all over the place, even inside the bank. Not sure that's a message or just simply advertising the local zoo. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know what. Be interesting to look up what gorilla medicine is about. If animals are sort of prevalent in an experience, like or poignant, so not necessarily prevalent as in all the time there, but poignant or made an impact. I always like to look up what the Native American or what the consensus is around what those sort of animals mean. sometimes when I'm doing a session, someone will say, "Oh, I just saw a hawk fly past up the, out the window." I say, "Oh, that's interesting," because if something happens out of the usual, out of the normal, then it's generally a sign that can be taken. Now, I don't, want people to get so super contracted about always looking for signs, but I find them interesting. And if something is interesting, then it's definitely worth inquiring into. Not always taking other people's advice as to what that means. That's not so empowered, but really, what does it mean to you? And that can tie into what others have historically or traditionally felt that animal totem or that sign indicates. Yeah, so I'm not sure about gorillas. Powerful but peaceful. Gorillas, they spend most of their time very, very peaceful. Just big herbivores eating fruit and leaves, basically. But at the same time, they're massive and strong and very intelligent, of course. So, and very similar to us in many ways, although bigger and stronger and hairier generally. But anyway, friends, I think we've done it, right? That was Chat with Matt for today. Go well. What have I got to announce coming up? So next Monday, my time, which will be Sunday in the Americas and Europe, we have our full moon lunar eclipse happening. It will be a total lunar eclipse that's seen over all of North America, and I think most of Europe as well, at least to some degree. I don't know if Europe sees it totally. It might be coming into the dawn for them before it gets full on. Yeah, The Gorillas in the Mist, a beautiful film. Catherine just wrote a solar flare happened a few hours ago. Yeah, so is that just happened, and so we'll wait 24 or 48 hours or whatever it takes for it to hit us here. The energy has been intense, like the energy over the weekend with the friggin' Schumann resonance going through the roof. Well, not necessarily through the roof, but whiting out the thing, or even longer, is it, Catherine? I always can't remember. Maybe it's 3 days, whatever. But yeah, might just turn up in time for our full moon call. So anyway, full moon happening with an eclipse. It's going to be powerful. I have no idea what it's about. I haven't looked at the astrology or what anyone else is talking about yet. But I will be doing a call at that time. I think it's happening about 2 p.m. for me here in New Zealand on the Monday. Let me just have a look at the time so I can actually advertise what time we'll be doing the call. Okay, calendar. Monday. No, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It happens at 4:14. So that's quite late at night in the Americas. So that's 1:15 midnight Eastern time. So we'll start at 11 p.m. Central. I always talk in Central for you guys in the American time zones. So 11 p.m. Central, which is midnight Eastern. And in Europe, or in the UK at least, I'm pretty sure that's 6 a.m. on Monday morning. Monday morning, 6 a.m. I could get that right. I could have got that wrong. I will advertise it with the proper times when I actually look at the world clock and stuff. So yes, basically it's happening Monday morning for most of the world, other than the western parts of America, Hawaii, etc., where it'll be Sunday night. So yeah, that will be free for everyone who wants to join. And of course you can if the times don't really work for you and you don't want to be up in the middle of the night. If it is the middle of the night for you though, and it's a clear sky, it is worth getting up and having a look at it because they're beautiful blood moons. When that shadow gets right over, the shadow of the earth goes fully over the moon. And then basically the light from the sun is wrapping through the earth's atmosphere and curving through the earth's atmosphere and then hitting the sun. So that's why the sun goes red, because all the blue light gets scattered off. And it's like a sunset. It's like the sunset is being reflected off the moon. So it's quite an amazing experience, the blood moon, especially if you haven't seen one for a while. It's definitely beautiful. It could be very beautiful there in Europe and the UK, where it'd be happening just before dawn, I would imagine. No need to be sorry, Susie. I am just about finished, and you can listen to the replay. Oh yeah, I think it's good to have your feet chopped off. Basically, Jill said probably why I needed to get my feet in the ocean, even though the cold meant it felt my feet were chopped off. They tingled, rejuvenated afterwards. Yeah, I think that's really, I shared, I jumped in, we've set up a plunge pool here, and last night it wasn't that cold because it was fresh out of the tap, which means the water's basically been flowing through the ground, so it's at ground level, which is like 17 Celsius or something here at the moment. It'll be much colder tonight, the water in my plunge pool, but it's cold water is such an exhilarating thing. It's like, we did this thing when we're on retreats down in the South Island where we jump in this, very cold water. It's 7, 8, 9 degrees or so, probably similar to what the Atlantic Ocean is this time of year, I'm not sure. But when you get out, wow, you feel so alive and you don't feel cold at all. That's the amazing thing. You feel very, very invigorated and like everything is turned on inside. And so I'm choosing to use some of that to help myself, and also my son Lucas is also willing to give it a go. So he jumped in last night as well, because he's been struggling with this energy. He's a very sensitive being and is needing some help with mental health and whatnot. And so definitely do the pool after sitting in the hot tub. Yeah, the pool at 16 degrees, it will do the job for sure. And the idea is to stay in for at least a minute. So not just to jump in and to freak out and squeal and jump straight back out. You don't really get the benefit. You want to stay in for at least a minute. You want to really bring your breath under control and really just sit in the water and allow yourself to feel empowered enough to know that you have done it, right? That you've survived, that you're coping, and really allow yourself to feel that sense of internal confidence in yourself when you do the cold water therapy. It's the same when you do the shower, right? If you do a cold shower, you don't just want to sort of jump under and shake around and then get out and think, oh, I did it. You want to sit under there and really bring yourself into a calm state of being with that cold water hitting you and go, yeah, I've got this. And then once you've done that and you just let that cold water really go all over you, then you can get out, right? Knowing that you basically, you met the challenge and you could bring yourself into center in that quote unquote discomfort and that feeling like because at first it feels absolutely terrifying that it's going to kill you. The cold water feels so shocking that your body goes into and you want to sort of, no, the last time, so Susie said, are you meant to get back in the hot tub or do you get out after the cold? You get out after the cold. You can do several rounds, like you can do hot tub, cold, hot tub, cold. You can do the same with a sauna, right? But you always finish on cold. And so after you've done the cold, don't rush to warm up again. Dry yourself by all means, but allow yourself to really embrace that cold for a few minutes, just a few minutes. I had an amazing experience. I'll tell this story before I get off. I had an amazing experience at a men's group. I was invited to a men's group. This would have been, I think I was doing The Hobbit, or was I doing Avatar? Can't remember. Maybe it was Avatar. Maybe it was 2008, or maybe it was another film. I know I was doing a film at the time because I was telling the boys on the film set the next day. As a yoga teacher, I got invited to a men's group, and they were up in Levin, and it was June. It was middle of winter, or July. It was middle of winter. One of the guys picked me up who organised it, Winston, who might actually watch this, so you'll get a bit of a thrill out of telling this story. And we went up to the men's club, which is at a guy's house who was, reasonably well off and had a pool and a sauna and quite a big house. So there was about, 10 or 12 of us there, men. Maybe it was less, maybe it was only 8. I can't actually remember. It was a while ago. It was like 2007 or 2000. Earliest it was 2010, whatever, latest. But anyway, so we did the yoga and then we went in the sauna and we all got, and then he said, well, what we do now is we have a quick shower, which is an outside cold shower, and then we jump in the pool, walk to the other side of the pool and back, and then back in the sauna, and we did it 3 times. But after we got out of the pool, we lay on the deck that was next to the pool and looked at the stars. It was a clear night, and it was July, which is winter here in New Zealand, and in Levin, which is country. So it was like 0 degrees outside, or 1 degree outside, Celsius, not Fahrenheit. It wasn't snowing, but it was cold, frosty type, evening, so 8 o'clock at night or something, so well dark. And we were naked, just to add an extra element to the story. So sitting in the sauna, beautiful, all talking and doing men's sort of bonding stuff, talking about all sorts of stuff. It was a reasonably spiritual group. Anyway, into the pool. The pool would have been about, I don't know, 8 degrees, 9 degrees, 10 degrees at the most. So it was going to be the average temperature, right? And at that time of year, you're going to get like 16 during the day and 0 overnight. So if you average that out, you're getting about 8 degrees as the average temperature. So the pool's probably 8 degrees. So into the pool, cross back, lay on the deck naked after getting out of a freezing cold pool, and you look up at the stars and the whole sky just goes woof. And it's just it was one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had, right? Probably ever still. One of the most connected experiences to all that is. And I'd been meditating at that time for at least 15 years. So, I was no newbie to spirituality and experiences, but that was amazing. That was amazing. And then back in the sauna, we did it like 3 times, and I was absolutely blown away. I was blown away. Yeah, the whale in Raro was probably top that. Probably did. But at the time, it was a very peak experience for me, and really helped me have a deeper appreciation for the universe, deeper appreciation for the sky, because it was just full on. It's very dark there. He was out in the country, right? So dark sky, place, cold water, body in shock. But the thing is, you don't feel cold. Didn't feel cold at all after getting out of freezing cold water and lying naked in reasonably cold weather on a friggin' deck, still wet, for a few minutes. Then got back in the sauna, of course, but not the last time. I don't think we lay there for as long the last time. I can't remember. Maybe we got dry and dressed, etc. But anyway, cold water therapy. It's worth trying, especially if you're struggling with depression and anxiety, all those sorts of things, because it kickstarts a huge and strengthens your immunity too. But it basically creates a huge dump of feel-good brain chemistry when you stress yourself to that level of getting in the cold water. So you can do the same thing under a cold shower to a degree, probably not quite to the same degree, but to a level of benefit. If you're interested in it, you can, look up Wim Hof and his, modern take on what is an ancient practice. They've been doing it in the Scandinavian countries forever, doing sweat lodges and then basically cutting a hole in the ice and plunging into below 0 Celsius seawater. Incredible way of maintaining their immunity and their sense of self, right? It really helps you know that you're alive. And their resilience for living in these very cold, harsh climates where it's even dark for months of the year and stuff. And to be able to live in those climates as a human, it takes some pretty advanced technology, e.g. sweat lodge and into the freezing cold water, in ways to really boost and invigorate the human being so that you can cope with those sort of harsh environment. And that's what they've been doing for centuries, if not thousands of years. Anywho. Yeah. So that's also beneficial. Susie just said, I've been trying to end my showers with a burst of cold water. Quite invigorating, but need to do it a bit longer. So, yeah, and that's a little bit of a different technology in terms, a short burst of cold water after a hot shower has the advantage that it shuts all the pores down in your skin. So if you're going out, like if you're having a hot shower in the morning and it's winter and you're going out straight after, it's really good to do that. Not so much for the cold therapy side, but just really to seal the heat in and close your pores before you go outside. And you will feel much warmer in doing so. I remember Dad made me do that down in the sailing club when I was a kid, after, sailing, and then we'd come home and go into the sailing club and have a hot shower and then finish with a cold burst before going out, because then you'd go and sort of stand on the deck of the sailing club in the wind and stuff. And if you did that straight after a hot shower, you could get, it wasn't so good for you, you could get a chill. But if you have the quick burst of cold water, it shuts the pores down on your skin. And then when you go out, you feel much more, you feel like you've sealed the heat in. So that is a really good thing to do. So especially in the mornings, if you're showering before you, like I did it this morning, as an example, before going out into the cold. So some people, what they'll do with cold water therapy is they'll start cold, So in the morning you get up, you turn the shower on cold, and then you get under it, and then you find peace with that, and then you turn the shower hot and wash yourself, and then you just give yourself a burst of cold to finish before getting dressed and going about your day. So that's how you would do it. Generally, I think is the guidance on how to do it in the mornings. Anywho, and you can read all about it. And again, please, I'm no expert on cold water therapy. I'm just dabbling in it myself. So if you're inspired and if you're interested, then it's definitely worth doing some Google searches and looking up some different stuff on it and coming to your own conclusion. Be willing to experiment a bit. You know, you can't really get this wrong. You can't really make a horrendous mistake. Generally, I wouldn't think. Anywho, friends, I have babbled on for longer than I intended, just for a change. Much, much love to you all. I'll speak to you Monday morning or whenever you get to listen to it with this full moon eclipse. Be kind to yourself. It is going to, the intensity will ramp up as we get closer to that full moon eclipse. And as Catherine kindly pointed out, there has been a big solar flare just occur, so that will be traveling to Earth and we'll get bombarded with a whole heap of photonic energy. I do believe we've just gone into retrograde with Mercury. Again, that can upset a few people, and another planet's doing something. There's lots of shit going on, and the world's a shit show out there, and don't watch too much of the news. So just be compassionate with yourself. Do what you need to look after yourself, and don't judge yourself too harshly if you're not doing a good job at staying functional. It's okay. Trust that even in your non-function or dysfunction, that you're having an experience that benefits you. My hairdresser says it's good for sleek, smooth hair too. Not sure if it would work for you, Matt. What's that? Cold water? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, I don't think my hair would look great, smooth and sleek. I don't think that's the point of me wearing my hair long. If I wanted it smooth and sleek, I'd probably shave my head. That would probably look the smoothest and the sleekest. Anywho, friends, much, much love. Look after yourself. Be kind. Bye for now.